On debate number 2, we say good evening to Ami Yagnik of the Congress, GVL Narasimha Rao of the BJP, Zafar Sareshwala joining us from Mumbai, a businessman, and who's got very strong views about this entire debate. R.M. Sundaram, senior advocate of the Supreme Court, and sitting with us in the Mumbai studios here, Shailesh Gandhi, former CIC and RTI activist. Sir, first to you, why not? Why not make it compulsory? Because I'm going to quote what H.S. Brahma said, 28 crore people did not cast their right to ballot, right to vote at the Lok Sabha elections. Unfair, isn't it? Because the country that you live in, the constituency, the state, the city that you live in, if you're not bothered about who runs it, who governs it, and if you don't want to cast that right, it's unfair.
I think basically one has to understand what is democracy all about. It's a celebration of individual human rights.
Of the people, for the people, by the people.
No, apart from
so if the people don't want to be involved...
Just let me finish this. The fundamental of democracy is the concept that each individual citizen is a sovereign and she gives a part of the rights to the state to get a governance. 2, freedom of expression means freedom to refuse to express also. You cannot say that we must all express ourselves everywhere. Therefore, these are fundamentals. This is against the Constitution, against basic tenets of democracy. And for a moment, let's assume we say that, no, we want to take a different position. Has anybody thought of the practicality of this? Supposing we have, at the bare minimum, even 10 to 15% people who don't vote. 10 to 12 crore people. There is no government mechanism that is capable of punishing these or doing anything. There are about 23 countries worldwide which have got such laws. Yes. Only about 8 or 10. And these are countries with very small population which are enforcing it. The rest don't enforce it. India has a great tradition of making laws which we don't follow. I don't think this is a very good idea to make a law which everybody will defy and not follow.
See, the point you raise is very valid of being able to actually implement it. And we'll come to those sort of logistics of how can you penalize 28 crore people in a minute. But I also want to get Mr. R.M. Sundaram on this. The issue of constitutionality. Do you think this would be unconstitutional? And tell us why.
Well, I certainly believe it would be unconstitutional, because let's start with the first premise. The right to vote is really a statutory right. It is a right given to every citizen, a voting citizen of certain age, to exercise. Now, there is no fundamental duty which is a mandatory duty under the Constitution. In fact, the Constitution under Article 19(1)(a) gives the right of freedom of speech and expression, which includes within it the right not to speak, not to express yourself. Nobody doubts that for a good democracy, every voting person, every person eligible to vote should vote. No one doubts that. I, for one, never miss my right to vote. But that does not mean that just because I feel this is a very valuable right which I want to exercise, everybody else should also exercise it. That is fundamentally against democracy. To insist that somebody else does something which you believe is right is totally against democracy. It's a different thing to restrict somebody, prohibit somebody from doing something which infringes somebody else's rights or hurts other people. That you can definitely statutorily do. But how is it that in a country where we have fundamental rights and these rights are to be enjoyed by the public, can you impose on them a duty which is not found in the Constitution? I want to give you one example.
Yes.
You know, years ago in Kerala, there were some students who did not salute the did not sing out the national anthem. They stood up for the national flag, but they refused to sing the national anthem because their religion wouldn't permit it. Justice Chinnappa Reddy in the Supreme Court, speaking for the bench, so beautifully put it as religious tolerance or tolerance of any nature runs like a thread through the Indian Constitution. And he said, nobody can force these students to stand up and sing the national anthem. Of course, a person can be prevented from insulting the national flag, which they did not do. They stood up and respected it. But nobody could force them to sing the national anthem. Now, please tell me, what is the difference here? You want a person to come to the polling booth and say none of the above. So what is it? You want to mandatorily make him come to the polling booth. It's not that you're forcing him to vote. He can come and say none of the above. So I do not understand the purpose of this.
So what's wrong with that?
We do something to encourage people to want to come and vote. You can't force them to do it.
Okay, Mr. Sundaram, I just want to understand this better before we go across to GVL Narasimha Rao. Now, for example, just help us understand this. The income tax is not something that's enshrined in our constitution. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a violation of law if we don't pay income tax, if we fall within that relevant slab. What's wrong, therefore, with the mandatory voting law? Because it is for the larger good. We can't deny that something like this would essentially be to make sure that there's people coming out and voting, and we don't see those very disappointing 45% voter turnouts, things like that. Therefore, why is this wrong?
Allow me to just correct you here. Taxation finds its source in the Constitution of India.
Okay.
The Constitution of India provides for taxation, and statutes are made in accordance with the Constitution. The fact is, our Constitution does not mandate a duty on a person to discharge various functions. It prevents a person from doing certain things which he ought not to do. It grants rights to a person, and it allows the state to restrict the exercise of those rights. Now, unless you are going to find that it can be constitutionally done, and if so, whether it would constitutionally still be upheld in the light of the fundamental rights, unless you find that constitutional duty in the ingrained in the Constitution, how can you have a statute which provides for it?
Okay.
No, but Arima Sundaram, going beyond
its source and support in the Constitution of India.
Going beyond what the Constitution can be amended, thought can be amended, it can be changed depending upon the need of the hour. GVL Narasimha Rao, tell us why the BJP wanted to make this compulsory for the local body polls. Is it the reason why that across your cities in Gujarat, the overall turnout for elections has been less than 40% or somewhere around that number? And do you want, and that's a larger question, what's the logic here? Do you want a majority to come and exercise their right to decide who governs them? Or because do you believe it's unfair? And that's where I'm putting out this question. It's unfair that a government elected by 20% odd voter base comes out and, governs the remaining, or a civic body which has been elected by 20% of a voter base comes and runs the civic authorities and the civic facilities. So be it local, regional, national, don't you want a majority, 80%, 90% plus, to come out to choose who governs them?
I think, Anand, the philosophy is, for a representative democracy, I think it is important that the citizens participate in the voting process. And I think though we are all discussing this as compulsory voting, look at the spirit of the law. The law is actually, I think, meant to inculcate some kind of a duty, some kind of a civic responsibility in the citizens. So depending on how you approach people, with what sort of
that nobody's contesting that.
You approach.
Okay, there may be some arguments contrary to that also. But one second, the question here is of democracy.
So
yes, we want to see 90% voter turnouts. We want to see 100% voter turnouts. The question that the guests here are raising is one of the fundamental right to freedom of expression and speech. Is this not clamping down on that right? Because included in the freedom of expression is the freedom to not express if you choose not to.
I think none of us in the panel is competent to really say what Supreme Court will eventually, how the Supreme Court will judge the issue. Every case will be judged on the merits. There is interpretation of the Constitution. If it was so simple,
I mean, if
that it would
just explain
the panel like this.
No, but first, GVL, just explain the rationale behind making it compulsory in Gujarat. Why make it compulsory in Gujarat for local civic body?
That is what I was trying to explain.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm saying not just the local body elections in Gujarat. We believe for elections to be representative, for our electoral verdicts to be representative, the electoral participation, almost 100% participation of the electors is an important prerequisite that would enhance
it's a prerequisite, but should it be forced?
No, but
should it be forced, GVL Narasimha Rao? Should it be forced? Should it be forced or should it be voluntary?
No, you see,
What about free will?
Voluntary it's already voluntary. There is nothing that needs to be done.
No, but this will not make it voluntary, right, sir? Mr. Rao, please, 1 second. The fact that the punishment hasn't been decided.
I think you are jumping. You are not allowing me to speak.
What happens here? That there will be some sort of penalty for not voting. There will be some sort of penalty for not voting. That essentially means that when you make it mandatory, the word voluntary automatically goes away.
Is that not obvious?
Yes, it is. That's what I'm telling you.
Why are you asking me this question? It's obvious.
Yes, it is.
The idea. So please allow me to speak.
Okay.
Yes, GVL Narasimha Rao. Go ahead, please.
No, I think you have already concluded.
No, go ahead, GVL Narasimha Rao. Let me openly say.
I was telling you.
There is a large number of our viewership base which also believes that we need to put in some mechanism where a majority comes out to vote, and there is a fear of not voting, not exercising this fundamental right because there is a need to do it. But the logic and the rationale is something which you have to come across and explain. Go ahead and tell us. Go ahead.
Anand, let us examine this issue in a logical manner. The first is the desirability of it. The vision behind it, I have explained to you. The second is whether it is constitutionally valid, whether the courts will strike it down. We certainly don't think so. But if somebody has doubts, let them approach the courts. Let the high courts and Supreme Courts interpret this law. We have no problem with that. We think the spirit of the law itself is so important. And a reasonable restriction, even if it is seen as a reasonable restriction of the fundamental rights, we believe the courts will favor this.
Okay, so
now the third
of
point
course
is,
it's open to scrutiny by the courts.
How does one operationalize this?
It remains to be seen whether it will withstand the scrutiny of the courts.
It is open to scrutiny, but we certainly believe the courts will, the purpose and the purpose of the law and the outcome of it would be so heavily in favor of the society
that
I believe the court would see this as a very reasonable restriction.
Yes, but the court.
But we cannot decide that in this panel. I think there are courts to decide it.
Yes.
So let us leave that matter to the courts.
Ami Yagnik,
okay, now the third part.
1 second, Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, just you have to allow Ami Yagnik to also come into this debate because the Gujarat Congress is the one that's perhaps raised the largest hue and cry over this. We haven't heard that much from the Central Congress leadership, one has to say, but the Gujarat Congress has certainly come out against it. What is your main contention with this bill, Ami Yagnik?
There are several. I think all of them can be branded as main. If you see, it was in 2009 that the bill was sent to Her Excellency Dr. Kamlaji, and she very succinctly put it on the file, the noting that it is violating Article 21. And along with that, there was some kind of noting also that by the Legislative Assembly members that anyone who will not go to vote because it is compulsory will be deprived of certain welfare and beneficial schemes. That bill came back and then again it went back, again it came back, and now it has come before this Honorable Governor and it has got its sanction. The main thing is that why you have to bring compulsion, because it does not go with democracy.
Correct.
Why
so Ami Yagnik,
take away the right?
Ami Yagnik, do you think it is fair for somebody who has not cast their ballot? Ami Yagnik, just tell me this: is it okay for somebody who's not bothered to even decide, not bothered to even see who's their local corporator, who's been voted, who's come out and who's been elected, to come out on the streets and stand on a dharna saying that there is garbage here on this street, these street lights are not fixed, the public transport here in my area, the roads are bad. Should that person have any right to come out and complain, say about the overall civic apathy? Because that person has not bothered to come out and vote and choose the right person. So if that person has not bothered to come out and vote and choose the right person, should he come out and do an andolan there?
But that person might be a
because if that person doesn't care who governs, why should he be bothered about how the governance is happening?
Yes, Anand, you are confusing the issues. That citizen might be a taxpayer and would like to have accountability from the authorities. That is one aspect.
Then that particular taxpayer also has a responsibility to choose. He has the right to elect. He has the right to elect. He has the right to elect, and that right to elect can be exercised by the statutory right to go out and vote.
I answer. No, the statutory right is that he has a right to vote.
Yeah.
But whether he chooses to exercise that right to go to the
Correct.
booth or doesn't want
Correct.
to go to the booth.
So when he chooses not to exercise the right to vote, he should also choose. He should also not be allowed to choose the right to come out and protest against a person he is not elected.
See, Ami will come back to you. Zafar Sareshwala, let's bring you in. Ami will just come back to you.
Anyone can go
Ami
and
will
protest.
come back to you. I want to take off on that point that Anand's talking about.
You are confusing the issue.
Zafar Sareshwala,
you are confusing the...
You know, we have a lot of people who say, I don't want to vote. Let's remember that in this particular bill, in this amendment, what has been included is that you will be allowed to prove that you were ill. You will be allowed to prove that you were not in the city or in the state if you miss voting. But there's a lot of people, and we all know enough of them, who don't step out to vote because they don't feel like it, it's too hot, it's too cold. And I think the point that Anand's trying to make here is that don't they have a responsibility too, Zafar Sareshwala? And if they choose not to vote because they don't feel like it, do they have a right to complain then about the state of affairs in their city, in their state and in their country?
See, ma'am, actually it is all about rights and duties. You have the rights and you also have duties. You know, 65 years since independence, since the constitution, almost 60 years, more than that. Now after 65 years, when we are known as the largest democracy in the world today, you see the appalling voting pattern in our local election bodies. I mean, that is the first port of call for our democracy.
Correct.
The panchayat elections, the councillor elections and the corporation elections. The kind of percentage, 40%, less than 40%. I mean, what are we then, what is the democracy all about? At least if we can't do this much, at least we go inside the ballot box and say none of the others. I would, you know, at the outset I would say that of course this law will be scrutinized by the courts. It will test the laws, whatever happens. But I would say that at least the spirit of the law should be taken into account. And have we not had amendment to the constitution?
Yes.
Okay.
Draconian amendments to the constitution have happened.
Coming
and
to
the
you,
Congress party, let me put one point.
Yes,
one point. Is this Congress party, do they have a gall to say the same party which has come with draconian laws like TADA and Makoka, where they have infringed people's fundamental rights, and they are talking about this law which is showing compulsion to vote? I mean, where is the sense of proportion?
So you are equating criminals with all the citizens of the country?
Of course. You don't talk.
What kind of comparison you are making?
Gall to talk.
No, what kind of comparison you are making?
What kind of laws you have made in the past?
Don't use this kind of language, Mr. Sareshwala.
The kind of, ma'am, you have made draconian amendments in the past.
Don't shout.
Talk about that. Oh, yes. No, you shout. You keep, let me talk first. I have allowed you to talk. So this is about the spirit of the law.
You have not allowed, the anchor has allowed me to speak.
No, you keep quiet now and let me talk. You talk when your turn comes. You have to take the spirit.
You don't take it off the tangent.
Of course, there are courts, there are institutions which will take, and you don't talk about infringement of people's rights, ma'am. We have seen enough of your party doing with the people, with draconian laws. Everybody in TADA was not a criminal.
You are in Gujarat,
you have made people criminal by taking that code.
You are from Gujarat, you know about it.
I know more than you.
You know about it.
I know how you have misused TADA.
Right.
For the past 30 years. So don't
Zafar Sareshwala, let's just come back.
About the Gujarat government today. We are talking about the Gujarat government.
I know that. I know
Zafar Sareshwala, you made a point.
You have to take the spirit of the law.
Arima Sundaram and Shailesh Gandhi have been shaking their heads for a while. So we'll go to them one by one. Arima Sundaram, you first. Yes, sir. You had a point to make. I think, yeah. Can you hear me, sir? Go ahead, please.
Look, it's a very, very simple matter. There's no gainsaying that democracy wants, wishes for, requires the maximum number of citizens to come and exercise their franchise. That is very, very, very important to a democracy. Equally, a democracy also gives the right to choose, not just choose your elected representatives, but to choose your own life, your own lifestyle, as long as you do not infringe the rights of others. Do not forget that fundamental to a democracy, fundamental to a democratic freedom is the liberty, the right to be able to do what you feel you want to do for yourself, so long as it does not come in conflict with other people. I believe it is an anathema to any democracy to force a person to do something because others feel it is correct. You can always prevent a person from doing something by which he is hurting others. But you cannot force a person to do something just because everybody else feels it should be done. I, for one, believe that every citizen, every right-thinking citizen should go and vote. But I equally believe as a Democrat, I have no right to tell somebody else, this is what I feel is right, so you better do the same thing. Then what is a democracy?
No, but
is it not an oxymoron?
But sir, there are democracies in the world, as Shailesh Gandhi was also pointing out earlier, Mr. Sundaram. There are countries like Australia, countries like Argentina, Belgium, democracies which do have this mandatory voting rule. Shailesh Gandhi, what do you say to that?
I'm not denying that
there are some bona fide democracies.
No, I'm not disputing that. But really speaking, the real test of democracy.
No, I have to clarify that, if you would like me to.
We'll come back to you on that. Please, we'll just allow Mr. Gandhi to make his point.
The real test of democracy, I repeat, is respect for the individual citizen and respect for his choice. I agree with Mr. Sundaram and all the panelists that every citizen must vote. I also believe I should vote.
Yes.
But voting is but a small part of participating in democracy. Theoretically, everybody must participate in democracy all along the way. Merely voting is just the beginning of it. It may be very desirable that everybody takes physical exercise, but that does not mean the government can make it compulsory. Therefore, and once you start subverting it, Mrs. Zafar mentioned...
Sir, voting is not a physical exercise, but it is a very, very important exercise. You said it is the first step, it is the beginning to a step, to a participating democracy. So if there are people who avoid the beginning itself, they have no business then getting involved anywhere else. You look at Mumbai. You look at Mumbai, sir. Lok Sabha. We were praying that Mumbai turns out. They were 56% or 55% of voting. The moment the assembly elections happened, it dropped. We were struggling to touch the 50% number. How can a population of 18 million people with a voter base of 11 million people not able to manage, not bother about what happens to this city?
May I submit
the local civic body here in Mumbai itself, if I take it, is less than 40%. So now if you want to sit here and crib about the bad civic facilities and mismanagement of Mumbai, and the fact that Mumbai is not a great city to live in, but you have not bothered to go out and vote and choose the right corporator. Hell, you don't even remember the name of the corporator in your area. Then there is a problem. And that's the spirit with which this is being targeted. So is that spirit wrong?
I am submitting.
Is that spirit wrong, sir?
Let me therefore explain. It is good if everybody votes. I am not disputing that. To my mind, however, it is greater good if they participate. Merely voting is...
So if it is good that everybody votes, that means it's bad if nobody votes.
But...
It's bad if nobody votes.
Certainly, if nobody votes, it's bad.
So if something that is bad can be cleaned by making getting that whip or impetus that they get out of their homes, come up to the voting polling booth and cast that right. If they don't like the candidates, they have the nota button.
In which case...
Let them say, I don't, none of the above. At least 28 crore people had to exercise their franchise. You might have had a lot of candidates who have been elected today not being elected, and you might have had repolls because people didn't like those candidates.
Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that?
Why don't?
A change
Of course.
No, I'm asking you.
Of course. Don't you want a change? Aren't you happy that you have a 65% voter turnout today?
Just a minute, Mr.
Aren't you happy? Yeah.
Mr. Anand, do you really believe that, let's say, 90% of the people had gone and voted, BJP would have lost the Lok Sabha election? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just.
I don't know. It's not about a party.
It's not. Yes. It's not about who will win the election.
It's not about a party, Mr. Gandhi. It's not about a party.
It's not about who will win the election.
It's about 28 crore people not participating in the largest democracy in the world, in a participative democracy. 28 crore. No. How can they choose not to be involved in the country they live in?
That is what I'm saying.
That is a fundamental spirit. That is the spirit of democracy. See, they are insulting the spirit of democracy by not participating in the voting process, by not bothering to come out and vote. They are saying that they are not bothered. If they are not bothered about this country, then I don't know whether they're truly patriots and they're truly Indians.
They are bothered. Just a minute. Mr. Zafar, in fact, made a charge against the other party, saying that you have subverted individual freedoms. Mr. Zafar is actually understanding that this is an action of subverting freedoms, and this is more a question of, at fundamental levels, if you subvert freedoms, democracy suffers.
Mr.
Sareshwala. What I'm saying,
Yes.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, no, because the lady was talking of subverting, I said they are the ones who started this.
So
but I've got a larger issue.
We'll finish it.
If in India, if in India we are largest democracy, and take Mumbai, as you were pointing out, if 60% people don't vote, the kind of candidates we have, then no wonder the criminals will come in your corporations and maybe even in the parliament. So we have to do that.
So
This is not
participatory. He says criminals come in parliament because citizens don't vote. Do you really believe it is true?
It is true.
See, it is certain.
It is true to a certain extent. You can't deny that. You can't deny that.
All parties are portraying criminals.
Nobody is denying the fact that the more people come out and vote, the better it is for democracy.
Certainly.
Nobody is denying that here. The question here is whether a law like this is something that is to be accepted or welcomed into a democracy, or if it goes against the grain of democracy. Mr. Sundaram, you wanted to make a point. Just, we'll come back to you now.
No, actually, I was just a bit puzzled by the entire debate going around the issue of, 40% only voted, 60% don't, and therefore we got to get 60% to vote. Now, that itself for me sounds a bit of a contradiction in terms. What does it mean? It means the majority did not want to vote or did not want to go to the polls. The minority want them to go to the polls, and therefore they will be forced to go to the polls. There seems to be a contradiction in terms here. Let's understand, first of all, that everybody respects democratic tenets. Everybody does. And one of the most fundamental democratic tenets is give everybody the freedom to choose. And the freedom to choose is also the freedom to abstain. And that cannot be forgotten. Don't forget that you have a column, none of the above.
Correct. Exercise that,
none of the above mean?
Exercise
it means
that.
I do not want to vote for any of them. Now, what does it mean? One moment. What does it mean? You're not saying you must exercise the right to vote. You're saying you must exercise the right to come to a polling booth and then say, I don't want to vote. It seems a complete contradiction in terms to me. What are you really saying?
No, Arya
That we will punish you
The contradiction is, it's not a contradiction. It is exercise the opinion that none of these candidates above are worthy of representing me.
Please allow me to complete my sentence.
Yes, sir.
It's no use without my completing the sentence. All I'm trying to say is, if the person comes to the polling booth and says none of the above, meaning I don't want to vote, or does not come to the polling booth and does the same thing, it really amounts to the same thing.
Yes.
We all want everybody to come out and vote. You cannot whip a person into democracy.
Yeah, GVL, your response to that, it's going to amount to the same thing if 60% people come out there and press nota.
No, I think he is assuming that those additional people who would come and vote would by choice select nota. I think I'm puzzled about that argument. You see, you've seen in the recent elections,
GVL,
although
sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. GVL, sorry to interrupt. Also the fact, sir. Also the fact, sir.
Did not come to vote at all.
No, also the fact, sir. No, sir, Arya Sundaram, there is a difference. When the person
that's a completely wrong.
GVL, just interrupting. Because the fact is, when the person comes and says none of the above, he does not come and say that I don't want to vote. What he comes out and says is, I don't want to vote for any of the candidates above. He's coming there making an informed decision saying I don't want to vote for these candidates because I don't believe they are worthy of representing me or representing my constituency. The fact is, the same person who sits, the same person when he sits, no please, the same person when he sits at home and does not exercise that right, he does not even let the world know that there is a problem with these candidates. That is the fundamental difference, sir. It's not one and the same thing.
He would have come to the polling booth.
It's not one and the same thing.
If he wanted to vote for somebody,
absolutely,
he would have come to the polling booth. Very fact, he hasn't come to the polling booth. He has nobody there that he wants to vote for.
Yes, GVL.
No, I disagree completely. I disagree completely. I think 60% of the people who did not come to vote, if you are assuming they did not come because they do not want to choose any of the given names, I completely think that's a wrong analysis, because
I'm not
as
making
a pollster,
assumptions, sir.
I think let me inform. No, David. You see, let me tell you. Please let me give you this bit of information. As a pollster, when we do surveys, we draw a sample of all those who are eligible to vote, and in this sample, those who are not making a choice of any of the options available is very limited. It's not even generally, it doesn't exceed 10 to 15%. But in real elections, you don't see more than 50-60% people voting. So I think my understanding based on the surveys that we do is even those who are not coming to vote, they have a choice to make, but then they don't speak, they don't express that choice in the elections.
See,
so let us not assume those who are not coming to vote have no interest in any of the candidates or any of the parties.
It has to be said that what you're saying, and by that logic that you're going, it is an assumption, because you are assuming that those people who are not voting, who are not turning out, would press nota if they go. That is an assumption, and we'll grant Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao that much. But my question to you, Mr. Rao,
no, madam,
is that what about? We'll come back to you on that. We'll come back to you on that, Mr.
Equally,
Sundaram.
it's an assumption.
No, I just
Sorry,
want,
it's an assumption the other way around also.
No, based on I'm saying this based on empirical evidence.
GVL Narasimha Rao,
the
basic question
My
here.
point is,
The
in a
basic
democracy,
question,
you
Mr. Rao.
don't force a person to do something.
Yes, Mr. Rao, the question here, the basic fundamental question here is that you are, by this law, essentially forcing people to go out there because there is a fear. There is a fear that if they don't, they are going to be punished. Now, we don't know what that punishment is going to be, of course, yet. Yes. But it is a fear out of which people will go out and vote. Do you really think that that is in tandem with the spirit of democracy?
That question is meant for me?
That's right, it is meant for you.
Yeah, I think very much so. Because we are looking at this as a kind of civic responsibility, and the kind of penalties, if at all, whatever penalties need to be imposed, that's not a part of the law. This will be a part of the election rules that will be framed by the State Election Commission in consultation with the government of Gujarat. No. What kind of penalties do we impose? I think it's something that can evolve over time, but it can be done in a process involving all political parties. There can be an all-party meeting conducted by a State Election Commission.
It's not about parties at all. It's
and
about
eventually,
people.
once it's agreed upon...
It doesn't matter. It's not about parties here. It's about people.
No. Political parties do represent people. Please
That's right,
this kind of... I think this
but you're saying political parties will come together and decide what punishment. I'm asking you about the crux here. The crux that there is going to be a punishment, however small. I'm not assuming that you're going to throw people in jail.
Nobody will be jailed. I think let's not create this kind of false impression that people will be jailed if they don't go out and vote. It is a very ill-informed comment.
We're not saying that. But however small the penalty, the fact is that the whole premise is a penalty, that if you don't vote, there's going to be a penalty.
Come on, I think there are a lot of systems in vogue in different countries. I think it can be even that if you don't vote consecutively in 3 elections, I think your legal right can be taken away.
Oh my God.
I think maybe you can be disenfranchised. Or you can... this is possible. I'm proposing
this is
somebody doesn't even vote for 10 years.
We're going to wind up.
I'm proposing it.
You are proposing something that's anti-democratic.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Now there is this entire thing about civic consciousness, basic consciousness and responsibility, and the other point of impinging on democratic rights. GVL Narasimha Rao, about to wind up, but the final question to Ami Yagnik, it's a little bit of a surprise that the Gujarat Congress, and especially you today, sit here and oppose this entire move, because I have read this very clearly, that the Congress cribbed in the state of Gujarat that the voter turnout was poor, and that is why the mandate was lopsided. And today, if they are making it compulsory in local civic body elections, then the Congress in the state should be happy, because then it proves your counter that if everybody comes out to vote, the Congress should have a resurrection in Gujarat. So I don't know why you are saying no today.
Again, you are confusing the issues. Voter turnout can be increased if you have campaigns for awareness, but you cannot go against the basic tenets of the Constitution. Indian Constitution gives freedoms to the citizen and a free citizen. You are dragging the citizen out of his home to the booth and making him exercise his right against his will because there is a legal action contemplated by this act. So you are making him exercise that right. That compulsion does not go with democratic principles enshrined in the Constitution and very against the basic tenets of the Constitution. So that free expression of speech, free and fair elections and a free citizen of democratic India and the Constitution of India has to go hand in hand. You cannot have a compulsion
irrespective of what the cause or effect. Yes,
whereas we all respect and recognize that there are very desirable things. One of the fundamentals of a democracy is the right to dissent, to say, I don't agree with you. Here, the right to dissent is being taken away. And therefore, it'd be an extremely dangerous proposition to follow.
It's not really
I don't want to go. I don't want to go for an election.
How is it, Shailesh Gandhi, the right to dissent would be, if you have only 30% voter turnout, then there should be a rule in the Constitution. Election Commission should decide, no, these polls are void, null and void, because unless there is a 50% turnout or a majority turnout for voters, you cannot choose that government as elected.
And we did not even
that right to dissent falls flat.
And we did not even
right to dissent falls flat.
We have not even addressed the issue of how this should be implemented. It's an unimplementable law.
Well, it depends on what really the penalty is going to be. But if you're talking about 20 crores, yes, you know, that's a fact. But just to conclude here now, the fact is that there are democracies across the world that make it mandatory for their citizens to vote. Yes, it's only 32 nations out of 170
only 10 implement
electoral democracies. But in some of them, it actually works. Australia is one example. So it remains to be seen. And as we've been saying through the evening, it is the question is if it's going to stand up to the scrutiny of the courts.
Yeah, and Tira, I think the larger message to the people who are watching this broadcast is, if you get out and vote, then they will not make it compulsory.
That's right.
So just go and do it voluntarily. So then you don't have to have a rule which impinges on your democratic rights, as a lot of the panelists claim. Civic responsibility, consciousness versus democratic rights being infringed. So that's where the debate lies. Ami Yagnik and all the other gentlemen joining us on the debate number 2 here on the Newshour. Thanks.